Chapter 71. He remembered, not letting go. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. I turned back to the living room, and Liddy had already set the plate down. Jilly and the Cerberus girls were already digging into the food, and Liddy turned to face me. Eggs in the morning. Liddy asked me and started to turn to head upstairs, but I walked over quickly to stop her, reaching out my hand to her, but she shook her head, and pushed my hand down. Why don't you join us? I asked, but Liddy just smiled at me and shook her large horns, curling horns from side to side. No, you have other evening plans, don't you? I am sure that Mary is not done with you yet, and if I stay, I might like it too much, Liddy said and turned to head up the stairs without another word. I watched her go and got a nice view of her naked ass, and I bit more as she left, but then a soft nip at my neck got my attention. I looked down and then remembered what I was doing as I looked into Nushi's squinted eyes. Do you need to do that when I am in your arms? Nushi asked crossly, and I had to gulp down some air. Sorry, yeah, I will keep my eyes in my head, I said and turned back to the other girls and walked over to the couch. I sat down slowly and let Nushi slide down onto my lap, and I assumed that she was going to slide off me. Instead, Nushi turned to put her back to my chest and leaned back, waiting. I knew what she wanted, and I wasn't able to do it at lunch, so I grabbed one of the metal-looking chopsticks that Liddy had left on the plate for us. I stabbed the meat, but I was surprised that they didn't have forks or something like it, but I guess chopsticks were easier to make. I would stab the meat and then hold it about 10 centimeters from Nushi's face. Then, and only when she was done entirely chewing, Nushi would take my hand and guide the meat into her mouth. Jilly was the first one to finish the large pile of sections that I had cut up for her, and she got up right away and started to make her way over to the stairs. I reached out to catch her hand before she went by me, and that stopped Jilly. She looked down at me, but Jilly had one of those, whatever you want, it better be a good reason to interrupt me. I smiled up at Jilly and let go of her hand. Are you still going to come and let me wash you off in the morning? I will be waking up super early to go see if I can deal with Jess Abel, but I should be back in good time, I said, but Jilly was already looking away from me, and I swear I heard her mumble, he remembered, but I wasn't about to ask her and ruin the moment. Yes, that is fine. Come get me when you, come back, please. Jilly asked shyly but then ran up the stairs before I could answer. Something had changed about Jilly since we were at Lava Lake. While I thought the new attitude was cute, I could tell that something was really bothering her, so I would have to try and make her feel better tomorrow. There was only so much one man could do in one day, and my day was already stretched. I turned back, stabbed a bigger slice of meat, fed it to Bera, and then grabbed one for Nushi. After all the meat was done, I picked up Nushi. She was becoming more attached to me, and I was sure that it was because of the revelation with Nishi, again not a bad thing, but something that would need to be discussed later. I called for the Cerberus girls, and then I headed up the stairs with Nushi in my arms and the girls on my heels. They were still in dog form, and I think they thought they would be coming to bed with me again. Nushi's room was labeled, but before entering the room, I turned to the Cerberus girls. Go up to your room, and I will come to say goodnight to you before bed, okay? I asked the girls, and they hung their heads. Tomorrow, you can come sleep in my bed, but tonight I need some time alone. The girls looked unsure, but then they turned and ran up to the next floor where theirs and Mary's rooms were. I sighed and turned back to Nushi's new room and opened the door. I was surprised to see all of the books from her other room inside the room, and the bed was the same. You must have done a lot of work when we got home, I said as I looked around the room, but Nushi seemed just as surprised as I was from it. I didn't do this, Nushi said as I walked over to her bed. I reached down and pulled the covers back and then laid Nushi down in bed. The problem was that when I went to let go of her, Nushi didn't, and I was held with my face almost touching hers. I could feel and hear her breath getting shorter, and after only a moment of looking into her beautiful smile, I knew what she wanted. I let my arms wrap back around her, and I slowly pulled Nushi into a kiss. At first, Nushi was stiff in my arms, but then she melted and gave into the kiss. Sparks crackled around me, but I really didn't care. I wanted to enjoy all of this, but not tonight, and not without some proper preparation. I slowly pulled back and broke the kiss, and this time, she let me go. Before I completely pulled back, I leaned down and gave her another kiss, and then said good night, and then left the room, heading up to the next floor. Chapter 72. Heartbreaking, not forgetting anyone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I put out the candle by Nushi's door as I closed it. Things were slowly starting to put themselves together, and even the whole Nishi thing was working out. Still, these things were the easy ones to deal with. That was really only because I knew what Nishi's deal was and what was going on with her. Now I had to deal with the other misbegot girls and then things that came with them. And then there was the demon Lord Dao, and he was for sure going to be a pain. That made me think about the first time I had met Jilly and what the more minor demon had told her, but did that still apply? Jilly was no longer staying there, so why should she have to pay rent? I walked up the stairs and turned to the girl's room that was already open, putting the thoughts of Jilly's rent to the back of my mind. I could talk to her in the morning after I got back from trying to rescue Jessable. Master. I heard Reese call from the room, and I rubbed my hand over my face and walked into the room. I am not your master, Reese. You girls are my friends, not my pets, I said as I walked into the room, but then froze in shock. The girls were sitting on the bed and completely naked, but I didn't want to look away. Yes, they were beautiful, but they were also very fragile, so I didn't want to make them think that I found them hard to look at. Why are you girls still not in bed? I asked, looking them each in the eyes, and then they scrambled with the blankets to get under them. That did not turn out as planned, and within seconds, the girls were tangled up. I should have known better and just helped them out, rather than try to rush them when I knew that they didn't have complete control of their movements. I walked over and slowly helped the girls get untangled and then into the bed properly. After I was done, I looked down at them, but they didn't look that comfortable. You girls don't have to sleep in this form, you can change back, and it will probably be a lot easier for you to get to sleep, I said to the girls, but they all shook their heads no, but at different speeds. You can't turn into a dog, Bara said softly. If we sleep the other way, you can't hold us like Mary, Sarah said, and then blushed, trying to look away from me, but I was in her line of sight no matter where she turned. If we don't get used to sleeping like this, then you are not going to want to use us, Reese said, and she stared into my eyes as she spoke. I paused for a moment to think and didn't speak right away. I could have guessed that was the reason, but it was hard to wrap my head around the idea that all these girls wanted to sleep with me. I understand, but I still want you girls to be comfortable. When it comes time for you three to come to sleep in my bed, I will still cuddle with you all when you are in your other form. It helps me to sleep better if I know that you girls are comfortable, I said, but the girls didn't move, so I sighed. I tried, but sometimes people just do what they liked, no matter what reasons were given. The girls had a one-track mind, and it seemed if they put their minds to it, that was what would be done. I tucked the girls in and then gave them each a kiss, but everyone was different. I leaned over the girls and kissed Reese first, and it was a regular kiss, but we held it until the other two got restless, and I moved to the next one. Bara's kiss was a lot faster, but she had the softest lips, and the kiss left me feeling cool and refreshed. Sarah was already trying to put the hand on her side into my shorts, and I had to pull it away as I moved to her, and I got a pouty-looking face when I brought my face to her. Can't I kiss you down there? Sarah asked with a devilish grin, but I shook my head. Another night, and I will let you do that as much as you want, I said as I leaned in to give Sarah a kiss, but both arms wrapped around me and pulled me into a fiery kiss that involved a lot of tongues. When I was finally able to pull back from the girls, all three were blushing and panting. They were all looking up at me with hungry looks in their eyes, but I shook my head no. It pained me to do it, and the sad looks I got were almost more than I could take, but then Reese spoke up. Thank you, and we can wait. You have already done so much for us, so we shouldn't be bothering you about this kind of thing, but we can't help it. It's always like this for us, every month, but for the first time, we get to choose, Reese told me, but her words were like a vice crushing my heart. These girls had been through a lot, but I would make their lives better. This was part of the reason that I wanted to do this, to help these girls get away from hard places that were not good for them. The other thing I should have been aware of, female dogs went into heat every month. While I liked the idea of getting to give the girls what they wanted, there was also the fact that I was only one person. Hopefully, the other girls wouldn't have the same problems, but I had to hope they were more spaced apart if they did. If they weren't, I would have a hard time going any actual distance from the girls since they are not likely to be cars or the equivalent in this world. Tomorrow evening, when I come back, we'll play catch for a bit, and then after supper, you three can come up and sleep in my bed with me. How does that sound? I asked the girls as they looked up at me with big smiles, and they all nodded their heads happily. Chapter 73. Mary. 3 You are listening at novelfull.audio. I kissed the girls on the forehead before leaving and put out the light for them as I closed the door. The girls were cute, but their story was heartbreaking. Even if it was normal for a dog from the earth, this was not the earth, and I didn't see these girls as animals. They were beautiful, cute, and kind, and I would make sure that they had a good life from this point on. I was about to turn to head up to my room, but I spun around and ran quietly back down to the second level. I went to Jilly's door and knocked quietly. After talking with the girls and being reminded of their story, I wanted to just say good night to Jilly. What do you want that makes you have to run back down here? Jilly called from the other side of the door. I had forgotten to say good night to you. I called through the door, but then I got silence from the other side. Maybe I was overreacting, thinking that Jilly would want me to treat her like the other girls. She was more of a woman than the other women, but at the same time, I think that she put on a stern face to cover other things up. Thanks, Jilly whispered, and I was barely able to hear it, but I did and smiled to myself before turning back to start to quietly jog up to the top level. Shit, I said out loud and then ran back down to the living room to grab the meat platter and what was left on it. I bolted back up to the top, but it didn't take me very long to get up, and I went straight to my room and opened the door. Mary was sitting up in bed, staring at me, but I guess she must have been staring at the door, waiting for me. Sorry beautiful, I had to get the girls tucked in, but I am here now, I said with a smile, and Mary returned it. It's okay, I knew you were coming back. You brought me some meats, too. Mary said with excitement, clapping her hands together. I smiled, and sat down on the bed beside Mary, and started to feed her and the snakes, but it didn't take very long. Mary was on a mission, it seemed, and when she finished eating, she tried to take the platter from my hands. I smiled, and then set it on the floor, pushed away from the bed, and then turned back to Mary. She was no longer under the covers, and her naked body was completely on display to me. Mary pointed to the slit on the front of her body that I had penetrated before in the pool as I climbed onto the bed. I knew what she wanted, but we weren't underwater this time, so I wanted to try something different. I will do that for you, but this time I will use my mouth instead of fingers, okay? I asked Mary as I hovered over her teal blue slit between her hips. You wanted to eat it? Mary asked with a confused look on her face, and I just decided that it was something that was better shown than explained. I let my face drop and pushed my lips into Mary's slit, and then let my tongue slide out and into her. Mary immediately started to moan softly and then began running her finger through my shaggy brown hair, which seemed to be growing far faster than it should. As I licked, I got a sweet flavor like nothing that I had ever tasted before and let my tongue dig deep into Mary. I reveled in the sweetness of her juices, and that made me increase my speed a bit too fast. Suddenly, I felt Mary's tail wrap around me and start to tighten on me, but I flexed my chest and continued on licking even harder. Mary was now moaning loudly, and I had already felt 2 of my ribs crack, but they healed so fast that I barely had time to register the pain from it. Stop. Or I will, ah. Mary cried out, but I knew what that meant and didn't stop as my mouth was filled with her hot, sweet, and succulent juices. I drank all of it in, and my fatigue from the day seemed to leave me. I wasn't sure if it was the pussy juice or the excitement of it all, but I was no longer feeling tired. What was that? You licked me, but it felt different. I liked it, but now I want more seed in my hole, please, Mary told me, and she was so damn pretty and cute that I barely even wanted to fuck her, just kidding. I wiped my face, and slowly climbed up the bed to bring my face level with Mary's, and then pressed my lips into hers. The familiar cool feeling of her lips, and her extraordinary smooth body, made my blood boil, and I was already guiding myself into her wet and waiting slit. Mary was nowhere near as tight as before, but I still had to slowly push myself in. As I did, I felt Mary's nails start to dig into my back, and I reached for both her arms and then put them above her head. Mary pulled back a bit from my kiss and looked up at my hand that was pinning hers, but that's when I started to move myself back and forth. Mary's eyes got big as she watched my large shaft slowly slide in and out of her, and her hands were forgotten as I used my other hand to fondle and squeeze her breasts. I had to penetrate Mary with my legs on either side of her hips, there was no way to enter her from behind, so I didn't have many positions to choose from. Either I was drilling myself into her, or Mary would have to be on top doing the same thing but from a different view. Suddenly, Mary's tail was wrapping back around me, but I caught the end of her tail as I picked up speed. As long as I rubbed her tail, Mary practically screamed with pleasure as I drilled my cock deep inside her slit, but I could feel the excitement building to a crescendo. Mary started to shake as she orgasmed and pumped all my hot semen deep into her tight little hole, and I let out a groan as I did. I let go of Mary's hands and sunk down onto the bed beside her. "Thank you for seating me," Mary said and then cuddled into me. I wasn't sure what to say out loud to that, but I knew that I would be more than willing to help her with this issue any time she needed it. Chapter 74. Growling, and keeping my word. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I woke in the morning, but it was still dark out, and I couldn't feel my legs. Not really that surprising since I was sleeping with a woman that was a part snake but completely adorable. I gently tried to uncoil Mary from me, but I had no luck and even got growled at. This wouldn't do, and I needed to get going, so I leaned down and grabbed the end of Mary's tail that was trying to squeeze the life out of me. I started to rub it, and Mary started to tighten on me, but then loosened up and let me slide myself out of her grasp. After I did, Mary curled up but never woke up, and I was glad for that. I didn't think that Mary was a morning person, and waking her up might not be suitable for my continued good health. I smiled at the thought and then tried to stand up, but it didn't work out properly for me. I tumbled to the floor and lay still for a moment, trying to get some feeling back into my legs, and then the pins and needles started. After about 10 minutes of throbbing legs and trying to rub some feeling back into them, I was finally able to get up. I crept over to my single wardrobe and opened it up. All the shelves had shorts in them, but they were different colors, but they were extremely bright colors. What are they trying to do? Paint a target on me? I mumbled to myself as I grabbed a lime green pair of canvas shorts and put them on. I turned and crept over to the bed and leaned in to kiss Mary on the cheek, and the little witch growled at me. Well, looks like my seed must have served its purpose, and now I was just another creature to her. I tried not to feel sour about it, but it was hard when the girl was as cute as Mary was. I pulled back and then slowly crept out of the room and closed the door behind me. I turned and then headed down to the bottom level and then into the kitchen to grab a quick bite to eat before leaving. I was surprised to find that Liddy was already up, and she had food prepared for me. I knew that you would be up early to go deal with Jess Abel, so I got up and made you a set of meat sandwiches. I will feed the girls this morning, but I would like some eggs when you come back. Remember, you told me that you would make eggs a different way, every day, right? Liddy asked with a sexy smile, and I walked up to her and kissed her. You really are the best, you know that, right? And yes, I will make you eggs when I get back. Today we will have them poached on toast. I said to Liddy after the kiss, and she smiled at me, touching her lips softly as she did. That does sound good," Liddy said, and then she stepped into me and then reached up to pull my face to hers. This time the kiss was much more passionate, and I found myself putting hands all over her body. The fact that she had no clothes on, but her apron made me start to slip into a rabbit hole that I just didn't have time for at the moment. I slowly pulled away from Liddy, and she had a passion-filled look that said she wanted more, but I shook my head. Then I better get some more of that when I get back because I like it. You aren't rough or mean, and I want to experience what little Miss Mary got to twice yesterday. I think that you can have time for me when you get back and then still have energy for the pups tonight, right? Liddy asked as she used one hand to run a finger down my chest and then the other hand to rub my stiff package. Yeah, I think that I can fit you in, but not until after I take Jilly for a bath, okay? I asked Liddy, and she gripped me in her hand, making me groan at the pleasure. Just don't make me wait too long, or I will come to find you, and get what I want, wherever you are, Liddy said, giving me a very pointed look that said I had better be the one to find her. Liddy leaned in again and then kissed my cheek and finally released her grip on my kickstand. The smell of her was intoxicating. I let out a breath that I hadn't known I had been holding as Liddy pulled away and then left the kitchen. I suggest that you hurry up, I tired her out quite a bit last night, but she is still angry with you. Neither of the sphinxes is allowed to attack you, but they will make your life more than difficult if they are awake when you pass, Meg said from behind me, but I had gotten almost used to the unexpected surprises and turned to him. Yeah, I am going, I said as I grabbed the 2 steak sandwiches and turned to leave, but Mex called out to me. That, you also had better make sure that you give that woman what she wants. Liddy is an excellent helper, but the woman does not work for free if you know what I mean. Liddy is also a passion demon, meaning that she is very passionate about what she likes and doesn't. So, just keep that in mind when you are talking to her and making plans, Mex said and then disappeared. I had gotten that feeling from the first time we met, but I didn't think that it was an actual part of her. I would have to be more careful around her, and maybe that's why Spell was scared of her. I would make sure that I paid the lady, but I really needed to get going, or I would be in trouble. Chapter 75. Candace and Veronica, you are listening at novelfull.audio. I had forgotten to ask Mex about how to get there, but I couldn't turn back. I did remember where I had to go to get there for the most part. So, I bolted out of the house but slowed to close the door quietly. Once it was latched, I took off running to the front gate entrance of the keep. There were no guards at the gates as I ran out. I was surprised by that, but I guess they were more just for show, considering who Mex was. I didn't really have the time to be worrying about that right now, and I took off running. Though not too fast, I didn't want to gas myself as soon as I got started. It was still mostly dark, but the sun was slowly starting to lighten the sky as I ran down the path to where I would be training with Grovel later. Once I arrived, I looked to the northwest. I was looking for the top of the maze that I had seen before but noticed a path that hadn't been there before, so I had to assume Mex made it and started to run down it. This path was jungle-like, similar to the one to go to Wataluga's area, and it was almost identical in the way that it looked. I wasn't paying that much attention, though. It was starting to get very light out, but now I could see the massive 3-story tall gray stone building about 200 meters in front of me. Then I saw her, sitting proudly at the entrance, eyeballing me. It was Max's fuck buddy and my best friend, the Sphinx. I was too late. So, looks like you don't get to just sneak around me, Candace said with triumph, but I didn't have time for her games. I walked up and then straight past the giant Sphinx. I kept going without even looking at her, and she didn't seem to like that. Hey! You can't just go in there. You have to answer my riddle. Candace shouted at me, and I could tell that she was turned to face me from the projection of her voice, but I just kept walking. Sorry, I don't have time for your games. I also don't have to answer any of your questions, and you can't do anything about it, I said as I entered the maze, but then there was another Sphinx waiting inside for me, and I rolled my eyes. A guy just couldn't get a break, but they couldn't harm me, so I wasn't sure if I should be worried about them or not. Mex has said that they couldn't hurt me, but he also said that they were going to make my life a living hell if they caught me. So you are the one that has Candace all worked up. Not much to you, but you have seemed to get under her skin, and she is my little sister, so I don't think that I will let you pass, the more enormous Sphinx said as she blocked my way, and I groaned but ran straight at the massive creature. The Sphinx was surprised and unable to react to me as I dropped down and slid on my shorts underneath the creature. The moment I was past the older sister, I was up and running again. Hey! That is not how this works. The Sphinx called out after me in anger, but her voice was already starting to fade as I put more and more distance between us. I was glad that I was able to get free from them, but now I had no idea where I was going. The inside was all smooth gray stone, unlike the rough texture of the outside. I had remembered it from coming in, but there was nothing to indicate which way to go. At first, it wasn't too bad if I took a wrong turn, and the dead end would be right away, but after the fourth fork in the path, the wrong paths started to get longer. That meant that I had to spend more time backtracking, and when I got back from my second long walk back, the girls were waiting for me. Think you're so smart. You won't fool my sister, Veronica, twice. Cadence called out to me as I approached, and I rolled my eyes. Oh, then that means that you are the one that always gets tricked. Wait, don't answer that, I have something better, I said as I walked up to the two female Sphinx that was blocking my way. You want to ask us a question? What makes you think that we will answer you? Veronica asked as she looked down at me, but I just shrugged. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, doesn't really matter to me, I said as I looked the girls up and down like I was sizing them up and then asked them a question. How many Sphinx does it take to screw in a light bulb? Both creatures looked thoroughly confused, and that was exactly how I thought that they would react. The answer is over there, I said, pointing down the hall that I had initially come from, and both of the Sphinxes looked over at the same time. BDNV I ducked down and ran through Veronica's leg, and then out from behind her, and started to run again, but this was going to keep on happening if I let them stay behind me. Not like I had a lot of options at this point, and I guessed that I would just have to keep dealing with them. Then I heard a dongling noise coming from ahead that sounded strangely familiar. I listened as I got closer to the sound. Soon, as I progressed further, I was able to hear the sound more clearly, and I knew what I was hearing, the Blue Oyster Cult, and Will Ferrell had engraved it into my head. Now I just had to listen to know what way to go, and the sound of the cowbell got closer and closer, but then something weird started to happen. As I got near to the sound started to move away from me, and then I stopped, and so did the cowbell. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Now I had to chase this scaredy cow around the maze. Ha! Found you, called Candace, and she and Veronica came barreling around the corner. Great, now this has just become a Looney Tunes skit. I had no choice but to turn and chase after Jessable cause I need more cowbell. Chapter 76. Catching up, off topic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You can't run forever, little man. We will catch you. Veronica called out as I ran. These women were so damn annoying, and out to make this whole process take far longer than it needed to. Making my life hell was an understatement, and what was with this girl? How the hell could she run fast enough to outdistance me no matter how fast I ran? It seemed like every time I sped up, so did she, and I was starting to believe the Sphinxes. You are never going to catch her. The woman is more than a head and a half taller than you. Candace called up to me, but I was not going to be beat. I blocked the girls out and started to focus on my breathing, even, deep and powerful breaths. In my mouth and then out my nose, but something was different, and my body started to pump up, and push harder. The mana or magic that was replacing the water in my body was reacting differently, and suddenly I felt like I was barely jogging. Each breath made my steps light, and then I ran faster than I had ever moved in a car. Every sense in my body turned up, and even though I was moving fast, I felt like I was moving at the same speed. It was everything that was slowing down around me, and I pulled away from the Sphinx sisters with ease. I could still hear the cowbell, but it was a lot slower now, and a couple times, I had to pause, but I finally caught up to the talk and clop. When I rounded the last corner, I called out to the huge woman in a Holstein print bikini, and 2, 3, 4 breasts. This was the moment that she noticed me, and Jezebel turned around to me, making my eyes go wide in confirmation. I got a full view of the 4 large breasts that were stacked on top of each other and obviously large nipples pushing out, making lumps in her bikini. She had the same black and white patterned hair from her knees down, and now the name, Minoschan, was starting to make a lot more sense. I could think of a large number of different things that I would like to try with her, but big dick or not, that was made for some weird sex trying to climb a mountain. This all went through my head at light speed, and then Jezebel screamed at the sight of me and bolted. I shook my head and followed but had no idea how I was going to do this. "Ha, we have. You know that you are tired." Candace called to me, and I saw that both were winded, but this was probably the most exercise these two had gotten in ages. "Bedodem, I am not tired, I was just thinking," I said as I did just that, trying to figure a way to get Jezebel and to get her back to the apartment block. "Well, my sister is the master's plaything, but I don't have someone to give it to me like she does," Veronica said suggestively, and that made me look up at the approaching female face in shock with a raised eyebrow. "Excuse me. I don't think that we are quite the right match. I am not Sphinx enough to join the Sphinx Club, if you know what I mean. Since we are on the subject, how does Mech satisfy your sister?" I asked, and Candace answered to my surprise. "He gets bigger, duh. Then the master fucks my tight pussy until I am unable to walk. And then he does it for about another hour until I can barely talk or even form words." Candace replied to me with more cheer and excitement than I thought due to this conversation, but to each their own kind. Still, I was not fuckling an animal, female face or not. There were just some limits that I would not break. The monster girls were a different story because they were all primarily human or could change into one. "Listen, I think the conversation has gotten a bit off topic. Were you two not just trying to stop me from getting to Jezebel?" I asked, diverting the conversation from sex, but Veronica was having no part of that, and I was slowly backing up as she advanced on me. "How do you know that you won't like it? My master Mex seems to enjoy absolutely destroying my sister, and I can only watch," Veronica said as she got close with a predatory look in her eyes. At this point, I was sure if was included in the orders to not hurt me. The closer Veronica got to me, the less likely that seemed. "Listen, you have a pretty face, but you are far more beast than humanoid, and I am just not into that. I am sure that Mex would give you what you want if you asked him, right?" I said, still trying to figure out what to do, but Candace shook her head no. "No, he will only do it to me because I have always been barren, so his black demon juices just leak out. If he does it to Veronica, she will no longer be able to bear children, and she will birth a demon sphinx. The world does not need one of those," Candace said, rolling her eyes, "but now I seem to be getting somewhere with them." "Ah, I get it, but I am not really sure how I can help you. I can't get bigger, and like I said, it's just not my thing, so I wouldn't be able to perform," I said, and Veronica's expression fell to a somber-looking face. Fuck, Veronica did have a cute face, and now it looked sad, and I really didn't like that, but I didn't have a way to fix it. Maybe I could see if I could find her a partner. I am sure that there have to be some male sphinxes kicking around here somewhere. Chapter 77. First Totem, I Want Separate Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Look, since neither one of us can do it, then what if I try to find you a male of your own species or at least something close? I don't know how successful I will be, but I will try, and that is the best that I can do, I said, and Veronica's expression brightened a bit. Really, you would do something like this for me? Veronica asked me hopefully, and I nodded my head. Now, time to get what I want, as horrible as that might sound, which was a trade of services. Okay, so I will do this thing for you, but I need help, and it will probably make your lives easier. How can I get Jezebel from here? I need to take her back to Mex's keep, but I can't just scoop her up and run off with her, right? I asked, and Veronica lifted an eyebrow at me. Why not? The master must have told you about her. Jezebel is omniphobic and a hypochondriac, so you will need to either knock her out or cover her up completely. That will be the only way that you will get her out of here, Veronica explained to me, and now it was my turn to raise an eyebrow. I am not knocking her out, but will a sheet really work? I asked. That's what we do when she starts to have a panic attack. A blanket is the only way that you will calm her, Candace explained as she walked up beside her sister. I was surprised that Candace was willing to give me any information, but I guess if I was willing to help her sister, I wouldn't be that bad. I guess that I would just have to take their word on it. This could also just be some kind of trick, but something told me that we were past that. I think that now I might even be able to consider Veronica a friend, if not her sister as well. Thump suddenly, I felt a thump in my chest like a force was forcing me to push my chest out, and I lost power in my legs. I dropped to my knees, only able to look forward to Veronica, but she was now glowing blue. What is going? I tried to say, but a message window cut me off, and I understood what was going on. Totem. Water Sphinx, confirm. Yes/no. Yes. I understood now, this was my class, the shaman. I looked down, and I could feel the mark as it appeared as 3 circles that made a sort of triangle. What did you just do to my sister? Candace said, trying to step towards me. Veronica pushed her head into Candace to stop her and let out a low growl. I choose this, leave him, Veronica growled and then looked back at me with a warm smile. I guess this isn't quite what I wanted, but you are very strange, in a good way, and I lend you my strength. I smiled and nodded back to her. This was different. It wasn't like I could read Veronica's mind, but I could feel that she was happy with the way things had turned out. I appreciate that, and I will try to use the power you have lent me to the best of my ability. Now, though, I really need to get this girl back to the keep. I have a lot more I have to do with the girls and other things and people I need to do, I said and was about to turn when Veronica turned back to her sister. Give it to him. Veronica snapped at Candace, and she took a step back from her sister. Fine, you are his little pet now, I get it. Here. Candace shouted at me before she turned her head back to grab a package that I hadn't seen before. Candace turned back and tossed the bundle to me, and I caught it. When I looked down at it, I realized what it was right away, and I looked up with a smile. Thank you, both of you. I know that we didn't get off on the right foot, but I think that we can change that. I know that you like mechs, but I just want to be able to be civil around each other since I am more than likely going to be seeing a lot more of your sister. Where do you two normally live when you aren't watching the maze entrance? I asked, but Veronica shook her head. We don't have a home besides this place. We mostly wandered before Mex found us. He saved us from being killed but a part of demons that were coming to kill us. Since then, Mex has mostly taken care of us as long as we watched the maze and Jezebel. So, I am not sure what he will do with us now that we don't serve a purpose, Veronica said, but her voice had gotten a lot softer as she finished speaking, and I could understand why. I was sure that someone who would leave people in a brainless drooling state was a problem, and not many would like that. Looks like I was going to have to ask Jilly to do some more building when I got back. The master won't just leave us. Candace said, trying to cheer her up, but that just made Veronica's mood even worse. No, he won't leave you, but now that I serve no purpose, why would he keep me around or give me a home? I am no use to him, Veronica said, but that is when I stepped in. Listen, I have a place in Mex's courtyard, a house that Jilly, the Umyakade built. I will ask her to build a place attached to the house today, and you girls can be my escort back to the keep. I will give you a home, all I ask is that you don't ask me any riddles that could turn me into a drooling vegetable, okay? I asked, and both the girls' eyes lit up with happiness, but then Candace froze. You just mean my sister, right? Since I already have the master to take care of me. Candace asked quietly, but I smiled at her. No, I mean both of you, I won't separate you girls, the two of you are family. Now, come help me with Jezebel. The sooner we are done here, the sooner I can get back and get Jilly working on your new home. I said with a smile, and the girls nodded excitedly. Now, if only Jezebel could go this smoothly, but something told me I was asking for too much. That meant that I was more than likely about to pay for my greediness. Chapter 78. Climb on, but don't fall asleep. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, how do I go about catching her? I asked the two sphinxes, now that we were on better terms. You have to be quiet and sneak up on her and then put the blanket over her head, Candace explained, but Veronica shook her head. No, that won't work now. You know how Jess gets once she is scared, and there will be no way for us to sneak up on her. Climb onto my back, and then move up, so you are tight to my neck. You will have to put the blanket over your head and then bury yourself in my mane, Veronica explained to me as she lowered herself down to me. Are you sure? I asked as I walked up to Veronica, holding the strange patchwork blanket I had been given. Yes, she already said she was ready to let you inside of her, so why would she care if you rode on her? Candace said as she walked by me and then bumped me with her back end into her sister. Yes, well, that was true, and she was bonded to me, but I still wasn't sure what that meant. I climbed up and then scooched myself forward until I was sitting on Veronica's neck and tight to the back of her head. I was about to put the blanket over my head, but then Veronica spoke up just before I did. Don't fall asleep, the blanket is enchanted to make the person using it feel very relaxed. I also don't want to brag, but I am sure you can tell that my hair is very soft and inviting, or so the master tells me, Veronica explained, and she was right. Okay, I will keep that in mind, but what am I supposed to do? Just wait for you to get close enough to her and then toss the blanket on her. I asked as I got myself comfortably tucked into Veronica's cloud-soft fur. Something like that. You will have to wait for your chance while we try to calm her down. I will use the word trepidation when I think that it will be a good time for you to try. Remember, you will only get one chance at this, and then it will be you chasing her again, and even with your speed, I don't think that you will be able to catch her, Candace said. I guess that I would just have to trust the two sisters that were just out to make my life hell, and that was all I could do. I didn't have time to keep messing around here, there was still a lot left for me to do today, and now I would have to butter Jilly up some more when I got back. Okay, I am relying on you girls for this, and I have faith in both of you. If we get it right the first time, I promise that I will have a treat for you both when I get back from my training. Whatever you girls would like, within reason, I said, and I was sure I heard Veronica let out a small defeated sigh, so I rubbed the side of her neck in consolation. I will try my best to find you, someone, like I said, but you will have to give me time. I know, but do you know that sphinxes are only female? And other than Tiga's father, the idiot Manticore, there is nothing on this island that would be close to me, Veronica said quietly as we started to move. No, I didn't know that, but give me some time to ask some questions to the right people, okay? I will try as hard as I can, but that is the best that I can do, I whispered to Veronica and then pulled the blanket over my head after I felt her nod. Instantly I felt tired, but not the exhausting kind. It was like I had just laid down on one of the costly beds at the mattress store, and now I didn't want to get up. Veronica was right, and I had to fight not to let myself slip off for a nap. I concentrated on the girls' different footsteps, but that just made it worse, but then I heard a new voice, and I focused on that. Hello. Veronica. Candace. Is that you girls? Or? The female voice that had to be Jezebel, asked in a very nervous tone. It is just us. There was another person, but Candace asked them a question. You know how that goes, and now we are coming to see if you are alright since we had to chase him for a while, Veronica explained. Him. There was a man, here. Was he alone? Do others know that he was here? Are they gone to come and infect me with something? Or maybe they want to come just to kill me? Jezebel said, but the girls tried to calm her. No, as far as we know, he was alone. When we are done here, we will go back out the front to watch and make sure that no one else comes, okay? Veronica asked, but that didn't seem to be what she wanted to hear from them. No one is watching the door. What if there are monsters or demons already inside? They could be hiding everywhere. I am going to die, but I don't want to die yet. I haven't even been able to have a baby yet, but now I am going to be killed, skinned, raped, and probably be given a large number of diseases too. Jezebel cried out, and I could hear the clop of her hooves, meaning that she must be dancing back and forth on them. The order that she assumed that everything was going to happen made it sound like an excellent way to go if that list of things was going to happen. Still, this was not helping because I could hear the clopping of her hooves start to move away from my position. No, it is fine, and you know that the Master protects you from all evils, and he would never let something bad happen to you, right? Candace said, and then the clopping stopped for a moment. Chapter 79. Calming, so that's what he meant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sounds that Jezebel was making had stopped, and when she spoke again, I was very close to where she was. So close that I need to restrain myself from trying to peek out of the blanket that was covering me. The Master did say that when he found me, but even he is scary. I heard how he makes you cry out when he visits. I don't want to cry like that. Jezebel cried, and now I could tell that Veronica must be almost right beside her. What the Master does to me doesn't hurt me that much, and I ask him to do it to me. I think if you tried it with someone, you might feel less trepidation about it, Candace said, and that was my cue. I sat up and pulled the blanket off me and was hit with a wave of excitement, nervousness, and adrenaline, all at the same time. It was like sitting at a desk with a blindfold on and then taking it off to find that I was on a roller coaster that was just about to hit the shit and do a 20-meter drop. I turned to a horror-stricken Jezebel who had an adorably cute face, but it looked to be about to explode with terror. I tossed the blanket over her head before she could let out the scream that she had been sucking in the wind for, and Jezebel froze. At the same time, Veronica lowered herself to about Jezebel's waist height. The blanket wasn't big enough to cover the second pair of breasts, but it dramatically affected Jezebel. Hurry. Pull her onto my back, and then keep the blanket over her head. We will take you both back to the Master's home, but you will have to keep her calm. The blanket will only do so much, and once we go outside, things will only get worse for her, Veronica explained to me as I did as I was told, pulling Jezebel to come and lay down. I was astonished by how well she acted with the blanket over her head, but at the same time, it was scary. The fact that a blanket could do so much to her must have been one of the reasons why Mex was protecting her, and I could see how others might abuse this. I was going to have to find a way to deal with this fear in the future, but for now, I just needed to get her back to the apartment. Then I was going to have to find a place to put her. Hopefully, Jilly will have already made something for her, but I had no idea what it would be. Jezebel laid down over my lap, and Veronica lifted herself up slowly and then started to walk without any trouble. I wasn't overly heavy, but between Jezebel and me, there had to be a lot of weight pushing down on Veronica's back, but it didn't seem to bother her at all. I reached down and made sure that the one end of the blanket was still tucked between my legs and Jezebel's breasts. As I did, Jezebel let out a small whimper, and I pulled my hand back like I had just realized I had stuck my hand into a basket of vipers. Sorry, I did not want to do this, but I need to get you back to the Master's keep so we can keep you safe. I know that you probably don't think that is true right now, and I can't really blame you. My name is Kaz, and I am a rancher that takes care of monster girls, and the Master, Mex, asked me to come and get you to bring back to the keep, I explained, but I only felt Jezebel tense up as I spoke. I wasn't really sure what I could tell someone that was scared of everything. I started to unconsciously stroke Jezebel's back as Veronica and Candace made their way out of the maze, and I felt some of the tension start to leave Jezebel. That made sense, and I know that I found it relaxing when someone did the same to me. I started to pay more attention to what I was doing, and soon I felt Jezebel go completely limp over me. "Well, that is one way to do it," Candace said quietly from beside me, and I smiled at her. "I just hope that she doesn't lose it when we get back, and I have to take the blanket off her head." When I took it off, it was a huge rush, and it was all I could do to quickly get the blanket over the top of her head. I whispered back. "Yes, well, I hope that you have somewhere safe to put her from now," Veronica said as we reached the entrance to the maze and then walked out. The girls both stopped and looked back at the maze for a moment, and I could almost tell what they must be thinking as they looked longingly at the entrance. This was a big step for them, and I was sure they had started to consider this place as their home. "You girls can come back and visit still," I said, not really sure what to say, but both the girls turned back with beautiful smiles to look at me. This place has always been a safe place for us, but I don't think that it could be called our home. We have never had a home, so for me, I was just thinking about what it will finally be like, Veronica said and then turned her head back to facing forward. "Yes, good riddance. And now I can be closer to the master," Candace said quietly, and I grinned at her. "You do know that the master has a wife, right?" I asked with a raised eyebrow, and then I got a confused look from Candace. Master said that you were taking care of his wife for him so he could give me more attention, right?" Candace asked me, and I rolled my eyes. What Mex had said yesterday started to make a lot more sense, but then I felt Candace tense underneath me. Great. Chapter 80. Hero, I guess I could listen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No, Mex mixed my words up, I have enough things to worry about right now. Let's get back quick, I still have a bunch of stuff to do, I said to the girls, and Veronica started moving without saying anything. I was going to have to figure out something for this, but Veronica also didn't need to get sensitive about this kind of thing. I was just a man helping women, not one that was tied to them. Well, maybe I was a little bit. I am sure that Klesh will find her way into your bed if the master assumes she is. Most demon women don't like demon men because they go, demons on them, and that is fine with me, but you can see how a smaller creature might not enjoy it, Candace said as we started to walk. That was fair, and after seeing how big Mex had gotten before, I was able to understand. I guess that I wouldn't mind if Klesh or the other women snuck into my bed, but I didn't have time for women fighting over stupid things like that. I continued to stroke Jezebel's back, and I pondered what I was supposed to do with her. I guess that I would have to ask Nishi and the other grandmothers if I could put her up on the island at the top of the tower. That would solve one of my problems, but there was another thing that I was slightly worried about. It was one of those minor things, but it was still something that I needed to consider. While Mary, the Cerberus girls, and the demon girls were all the same size as me, I wasn't sure what to do about Jilly, and now Jezebel, and Veronica. While there was no denying that we could do things, it would be like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. Hero. I thought you had gone on a vacation. And since when are you my guide? I don't even know how to use the thing yet, and you want me to train with the thing turned on all day long. The man had a point, and I had already caused him enough grief to begin with, so it might not be that bad of an idea to hear him out. Okay, I will listen, but what will the totem do for me? Interesting, this would be very helpful, but at the same time, it was going to be highly distracting. I had more problems than I could count on right now, so this was going to be quite the experience. I had never really liked to overprocess thinking. Getting worried about things that you can't control isn't good for you. At the same time, because of my lack of caring of what I did to make it to the top on Earth, this might not be bad. We are here, Veronica said quietly, and I was pulled from my introspection with Hero. I looked up, still stroking Jezebel's back as I did, and there was the keep and my much larger apartment beside it on the right. I still felt weird about it, but Mex had basically moved in and said I could do whatever I wanted. I guess I could see where he was coming from, but he had better still be doing what he is supposed to as a demon lord. I needed to talk to him about that to find out how that would and what I could do about Jilly's rent. Thanks, can you take me up into Mex's keep, and then I'll go drop Jezabel off with Nishi. You two can find some shade for now, but you will have to wait until I come back later for me to get the rest sorted. I have the training, I explained to the girls quietly. Thank you, we will be fine in the shade, but if there is water, that would be good as well, Veronica said. Yes, I will get a large basin, and I will ask Liddy to prepare some meat for you, I said, but then Candace gave me a horrified look as we crossed the bridge to the front gate. We don't eat meat. Just nuts and berries, and some watery leaves, please. Candace asked me, trailing off, and I nodded. I hadn't really thought about anyone but Nishi not wanting to eat meat, but I was sure that Liddy would be able to help get something prepared. Yes, I will ask Liddy about it, but I am sure that we have some of all that stuff. Good morning men, I said as the two guards, Spell and Trig, gawked up at the two sphinxes and me as we walked by. The two didn't say anything, and then they just turned back to face forward after we passed them by. Either the men knew who the girls were already or were just terrible guards, I would say the latter, but I wasn't here to judge. We reached the front of the keep, and Veronica bent down for me to get off easily, and I was able to get off without taking the blanket off Jezebel's head. I then rolled her into my arms awkwardly but was able to lift her large frame with ease now. I was fortunate to have made peace with these girls, and I might not have been able to get Jezebel if it weren't for them. I wonder if this was Mex's plan all along.